Altered's latest set, Whispers from the Maze, released just over a month ago, and I'm a bit behind hunting for uniques, so I've got some boxes and some packs. Let's open them up and see what we can find. Hey yo, what up? Welcome back. Today I've got a couple of Whispers from the Maze booster boxes that I'm going to crack into. I think I'm going to do both of them in this video. I'm really looking for some inspiring Axiom uniques in these boxes. Axiom is a deck I'm really interested in myself. I love that color and the theme. But I don't have any great Axiom uniques yet. It's probably the fewest uniques that I own in total. But I've picked Axiom as my adventure pass, my little, altered battle pass the last 2 seasons. And I've yet to really play it, so that's what I'm looking for or hoping for out of this box. I'm not going to pause and talk about the commons and rares, I'm just going to fast forward through them, and then we're going to stop and talk about the uniques. If you want to hear my thoughts about the cards in this set, I do have very long videos for each faction in excruciating detail talking about these cards. So if you want to listen to that, go check them out. I'll have links to it in the description. But let's get right to it, shall we? Alright, I asked for an Axiom unique, it's the first one we hit, so let's take a look. We've got the Grims, 3 from hand, 2 from reserve, 2/2/2. It says, when you play me from anywhere, you may sacrifice a permanent. If you do, each robot you control other than me gains 1 boost. When I leave the expedition zone, if your hand is empty, target character other than me in play or in reserve gains 1 boost. And then it has a support ability of you can discard me to exhaust target card in reserve. This card kind of has a lot going on. It's cool because this plays well with the gear permanent that the Grims already wants to play with, the bug out bag, because you can sacrifice that permanent and then give the robot that the bug out bag made a boost. I don't think you're really ever going to get this when I leave the expedition zone effect, because if you're, again, we've talked about this before on this channel, if your hand is empty, you're probably losing the game, and the payoff for your hand being empty is not even good. It just gives 1 boost. I don't think this is a very good unique, but maybe I'm missing an interaction that would make this great. Let me know in the comments. Alright, second unique. It's yet again another Bravos unique. If you're new to this channel or you haven't seen my other videos, I open so many Bravos uniques. I probably have to have twice as many as the next faction, but it's probably the faction I play the least of. So let's see what this guy does. 2 from hand, 2 from reserve, 1/1/3, Burrowing Noosh, Animal Plant. When an opponent draws 1 or more cards or does resupply, I gain a boost. The stats for 2 mana from hand and reserve aren't very bad, and especially if you can get your opponent to draw a resupply during the turn. This thing's a 2 mana 2/2/4, just triggering 1 boost. That's pretty good stats. It also has the support ability here where you can discard it, the next card you play this turn costs 1 less. I also really like that effect, especially in Bravos. There's already some cool big mana Bravos strategies. I think this is just fine. It doesn't synergize super well with what Bravos wants to do. Like, there's no force draw or resupply that I know of in Bravos, and I think this is just a filler unique. You know, if you just need a Bravos unique to put in your deck that's low mana cost, I think this will be serviceable, do just okay. are on a roll with these uniques. We're hitting them pretty quick here. I think this is my first time seeing a unique pastry chef, and I do really like the art. This is in Ysmir, which pastry chef already is in, faction shifted. This is 3 from hand, 5 from reserve, a 1/4/4. I already like those stats, those are pretty good. This says, when you play me from anywhere, if my expedition is behind, I gain 1 boost. Okay, so not bad. If you play this in an expedition just from hand for 3 mana and it's behind, you're going to get a 3 mana 2/5/5. Big fan of that. That is huge value. And then this says, when you play me from reserve, if I have 2 or more boosts, draw a card, otherwise resupply. Ooh, that is excellent. And then this has the standard passive support ability in this new set, where when you play a spell, it gains a boost up to a maximum of 2. So worst case, you're playing this from your reserve for 5 mana, and ideally in an expedition that's behind, it gains a boost. Yeah, this card is really, really cool. Since this has the, when you play me from anywhere, if my expedition is behind, I gain a boost, it only needs 1 boost from your reserve, which is super cool to turn this online or let you draw a card. Otherwise, resupply is also a really nice line of text if you just need a 5 mana body. Because, again, if you play this from your reserve in an expedition that's behind, it comes out as a 5 mana 2/5/5, which isn't the worst thing, and it's going to resupply you. I think this is a pretty cool unique. I'm pretty high on Pastry Chef in general, so I like this card. I'd say this is pretty good, and I would probably end up playing it in maybe a Kesha or something. Maybe an Aphanis deck because you're a spell slinger. I think this would slot pretty well in one of those 2 decks. Let me know what you guys think. Another Axiom unique. Okay, this is what I asked for, so let's see. This thing is 5 from hand, 4 from reserve, 5/5/4. Okay, already pretty good lineup here of stats. With Scout 2, we love Scout. Scout 2 is okay. Not as good as Scout 1, of course. It says, when you play me from anywhere, roll a die. On a 4+ sabotage, otherwise you may exhaust target card in reserve. Okay, that's not terrible. For 2 mana, you can, at least turn off a card from your opponent's reserve guaranteed. and maybe you'll sabotage it and it's gone permanently. This says, when you play me from reserve, you may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, you may discard target permanent with hand cost 3 or less. That's some nice flexibility, a 4-mana 5/5/4 with the option of discarding a permanent. I think this is a pretty good Axiom unique. It doesn't really, call to me as like a super synergistic piece or a reason to want to play Axiom. I think this is just going to be a versatile, nice to have unique. Yeah, not bad. I'd probably play it. And that concludes the first box. I think the best unique we got is probably the Pastry Chef. The most versatile and most likely to be played, in my opinion, is the Ephron, the Axiom unique after that. And then the other two, the Grims and the Burrowing Noosh, I think are just okay. They're not anything to write home about. Let's move on to the next box. Another Axiom unique. Okay. This is good. This is what I asked for. So 4 from hand, 2 from reserve. Ysmir Nurse, 2/2/3. Says, when you play me from anywhere, you may sacrifice a permanent. If you do, I gain 2 boosts. So kind of similar to what the nurse does already. She wants you to sacrifice a character. And it says, when you play me from hand, you may sacrifice a permanent. If you do, draw a card. Okay, now we're talking. You do have to have 2 permanents to sacrifice. You can't just sacrifice the same permanent and get both effects in this case. Gain 2 boosts and draw a card. It's interesting that you can kind of choose what you want to do. So if you only have 1 permanent to sacrifice, you can either buff it up, make it bigger with 2 boosts, or you can draw a card. It's going to be super rare, I think, to have 2 permanents that you want to sacrifice. And then if you do sacrifice it, you get a 4-mana 4/4/5 that draws you a card. Now, if you do have a permanent to sacrifice when you play this from reserve, it is going to be really, really big. A 2-mana 4/4/5 is super powerful. This does intrigue me a bit because I've been looking at cards that want to sacrifice permanents. In the first set especially, there were a bunch of Axiom uniques that wanted to sacrifice characters or permanents for some benefit, and this falls right into that category. So maybe there's a build there that's interesting. I don't know. I'll have to dabble with this. Let me know what you guys think of this. Very next pack. Okay, so we've got a Muna unique. This is a Leo Relic Expert. I think this was already printed into Muna as the faction shifted version. This is 4 from hand, 4 from reserve, 4/4/3. Not a bad stat line. It says, when my expedition moves forward due to grass, sabotage after rest. Okay, so this is clearly a Rin unique. When another character joins my expedition, if you have less cards in reserve than target opponent, I gain 1 boost. This guy would really love to be anchored. He would fit super well into Rin, but besides that, I think he's pretty niche. It's weird because this second line here says, when another character joins my expedition, if you have less cards in reserve than target opponent. With Rin, you're going to be putting cards into your reserve with Rin's ability. So most of the time, I don't think you're going to have less cards in your reserve. I'm not sure. This is a strange one. I don't think it's that good. Seems just fine. Let me know what you guys think. This might be the most amount of text I've ever seen on a card, so let's take a look at Man in the Maze. This is 6 from hand, 3 from reserve, 504. This looks like it has the standard Man in the Maze effect, which is when you play me from hand, remove all boosts from characters in play and in reserve. Notably, that says characters. I think Man in the Maze says remove all boosts from all things in play and in reserve, but I'll have to double check. Then depending on the number of boosts you remove this way, oh, this unique, you can do all of them. Okay, so 1+, you may return a spell from your reserve to your hand. 4+, you may discard target character in play or in reserve. 9+, your opponent's expedition facing me moves backward 1 region. And then it has a support ability here where you can discard it to augment target card in play or in reserve. Now, it does say target card, and I think that works with heroes. I'll have to double check. I think a card is a hero. Granted, in Ysmir, there isn't a hero that gets counters, so not relevant yet, but maybe as Ysmir gets more heroes printed, you'll be able to take advantage of this. It kind of depends on how the meta shakes out to see if this card is going to be good, because right now there's not a ton of boosts that are being thrown around. Like you're almost never going to get this 9+ unless you're putting a lot of boosts on your things, and that's kind of your whole game plan. This does look like it would play well in Afanis because, you know, it removes boosts from things, and it removes boosts from your things, but you'll return a spell from your reserve to your hand for doing so. You can discard a character, which is a really powerful effect. This card is just really hard to evaluate. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. The art is sweet. Yeah, I really called my shot here with the Axiom Uniques. This is my 4th Axiom Unique, I think, between these 2 boxes. But let's check out Sap Sniffer. So 2 from hand, 3 from reserve, 2/3/2. Great stat line already. Big fan of that from hand especially. But this says, when you play me from reserve, you may augment target card in play or in reserve, and then another when you play me from reserve effect. If you control 2 or more permanents, create a brass bug token and target expedition. And then it has a support ability of you can discard this to have target character gain fleeting. So sort of a pseudo removal with like acapella training, for example. Or it does like an acapella training effect is what I mean. You probably won't be using this support ability very often because most of the power in this card comes from playing it from reserve. It is a bummer that it doesn't have the standard Axiom passive support ability of at noon you put a counter on this thing, because then when you played it from reserve it could augment itself and get even bigger, and I would be a big fan of this card then. This is good. You probably would play this in a deck like Sierra, for example, because Sierra wants to play a lot of permanents. This makes a Brass Bug, and Sierra with Brass Bug Hive. I think this is good. I'm always a big fan of the low mana cost uniques, especially ones with good stat lines like this. A 2 mana 2/3/2 is already great. And then maybe if you're playing the Foundry, which is a permanent that says you can activate the from reserve abilities of cards, this card would go crazy with that. I'm feeling a bit inspired with this card. Maybe my favorite Axiom unique I've opened so far. Let me know what you guys think. Very next pack. Okay, so we get a Muna unique. This is Auron. 5 from hand, 4 from reserve, character Spirit. For a 3/5/1. Don't love those stats. That is pretty under budget here, so hopefully the effect is powerful. It has Scout 2. We love Scout. When you play me from anywhere, plants you control other than me gain a boost. When I gain 1 or more boosts, if your reserve is empty, you may exhaust target card in reserve. When I gain 1 or more boosts, if your reserve is empty, you may exhaust target card in reserve. Yeah, this card looks bad. I don't see a reason why you'd ever play this unless you're going super wide with plants. We don't currently have a way to generate plant token characters as far as I know. So maybe in the future if we have like plant tokens and the Scout 2 gives boosts to your plants, I don't know. This card looks really bad. I could be misevaluating this. I don't know. This card looks not good. And that concludes the boxes. I opened 9 total uniques, 4 of which being Axiom. That's funny, I called for it before I even started. The most inspiring unique here is probably the Sap Sniffer in my opinion. I'm excited to try and build something around that. I also really like the Pastry Chef. I'm going to be working on some gameplay videos soon. The hero that I've been eyeing the most is Golrang, because Golrang got a lot of new toys in this set, Whispers from the Maze. I didn't get any Ortus uniques, sadly, but I do have some pretty cool ones that I'm excited to use already for Golrang. Let me know what you guys think of these uniques in the comments, and I hope you enjoyed watching. I will catch you in the next one.